What's up? What's up? What's up? This is Break the Chains podcast. I'm Eastside. I'm sitting here with my brother Manny today. We're talking about Zionism. So, if you don't know, Zionism is the term used by the nation state of Israel, which I guess in a broader way refers to colonialism, but is not necessarily used like they won't necessarily meld it together with colonialism so you know what it really is. But Zionism is a form of colonialism. The state of Israel was created in 1948, clearly through violent means of taking other people's land, and has been funded by the United States of America since its inception. So, what's some of the things that you've been thinking about Zionism, Manny?
Yeah, like to segue off your point about the state of Israel, it was created in 1948. There was a UN resolution, and they didn't really get the consent of the indigenous Palestinian people that was already there because Palestine was colonized by the British. The British colonized Palestine, and it wasn't like they asked the indigenous Palestinians that were there at the time, like, do you guys want to take a vote and do you want these Jewish people from Europe to come here in your land?
Of course.
It wasn't a consensual thing. It was like Palestine was in the hands of the British. The UN was like, okay, the state of Israel is now declared in 1948. So it wasn't a voting or everybody gets a chance to say how they feel about it type of situation. And it's essentially colonialism. Like
Yeah.
Zionism, the difference between Zionism and Judaism is like Judaism is a religious belief. It's the belief in one God,
Yeah.
The Torah. It's a religion. It's a faith system. And what they do is they use that faith system to confuse people and to misdirect people. They use that faith system to say like Zionism and Judaism is the same thing, and it's not the same thing. Zionism is a political philosophy that says that there should be a Jewish state. You know, Jewish people have been oppressed historically, so they deserve a state. And the founder of Zionism, Theodore Herzl, he was actually an atheist. Like, he didn't believe in God at all.
Yeah.
So it's like that alone tells you, like, the founder doesn't believe in any God. And this is a movement saying that the Jewish people, which is a faith people, a people of the faith, deserve land. And he's a man that's saying there is no God. So I feel like there's a lot of like holes in that ideology that people don't unravel for obvious reasons, and it's like they don't want people to see those differences, and like they're manipulating the public to feel like Zionism and Judaism is the same thing. And anybody that challenges Zionism and the taking of the Palestinian people's land is like an anti-Semite. And it's like the Arab Palestinians are a Semitic people. Semitic means that you're from that region in the world, the Middle East, North Africa. That's what Semitic means. It means from that part of the world. So I feel like they use that anti-Semitic label to be like, oh, you're being a racist, and nobody wants to be called a racist, obviously. So they use that to like make people shut up and be like, you can't talk about this genocide, like you're being racist against Jews, and that's not true because there's Jews at the Free Palestine protest. There's Jews in Brooklyn that understand like a Zionist and a Jew is not the same thing. Like they know that the state of Israel is not representing them in their religion. It's two different things. So I feel like for the listeners out there, like people have to see that difference, and you have to actually like know when you're being manipulated to like align with something that a lot of people really don't know the background to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like in this current day and age, when you hear about Zionism, the reason it has so much power is because it's the lore behind Judaism. You know what I'm saying? Like what white people have been able to do so successfully within the past hundreds, thousands of years of just dominance of European dominance and the European descendant dominance is create a lore that allows them to do what they do without an appropriate backlash. And I feel like a lot of white people like the idea of Judaism today and Zionism today because the Christianity has been so muddied by genocide, whereas now it's like, well, we have these Jewish people, and you know what I'm saying, their archetype is supposed to be virtuous and goodness, and these are the people who've been through their own Holocaust, and they're the good white people of the world. And when you really look at what Israel represents, it's not anything that ties into this virtuous lore. It's more so just a nation state of a warmongering nation state. who has attacked damn near all of the nations that border it, and is currently invested in a massacre of the Palestinian people. And I think there's so much, that the news media tries to use to like blur what's really going on. But if you really look at reliable sources like doctors from all over the world that go to Palestine, you know what I'm saying? If you're looking at a source that's not a politician that's just trying to keep their position, or not someone that's invested in getting the land of the Palestinian people, then what you'll see is people telling the truth. And the truth in regards to this is that Israel, the state of Israel, is committing an atrocious massacre, genocide, and Holocaust against the people of Palestine.
Absolutely. And I feel like they're manipulating emotion and they're manipulating people's suffering to justify all of this. Like, we all went to school. Like, we know that there was a Jewish Holocaust, mainly in Europe and in Germany. Like, we know that that happened, and we know that Jewish people have suffered historically. So they're using that suffering to take the lands of another people who did nothing to the European Jews. My thing is like, if European Jews suffered mainly in Europe, they suffered in Germany, they suffered in Hungary, they suffered wherever in Europe. It's like, why not take some of Germany and give that land, or give a section of that land, to the European Jews that were persecuted in these places? It doesn't make sense that they went all the way to the Middle East, to the Arab Palestinians who did nothing to the European Jews historically, and they're taking this land and they're using it under the guise of a Jewish state. But if you build your state like under the bones of people, and you build it under mass suffering, it's like, what does that say about your state essentially? So I feel like it's a lot of manipulation going on. It's a lot of like using the actual suffering of European Jews, what they went through historically, to take the land of not of a non-white group, Arab Palestinians. And that's something that's been done historically. They did it with the indigenous here too. The indigenous people here didn't do anything to the Europeans, but the Europeans came here and took the land, and they came up with all these justifications like they weren't really on the land like that. There wasn't much people here. They say the same things about the Palestinians, like there wasn't much Palestinians there. There wasn't, like, when they went there it was just desert, and that's not true. There was many established indigenous Palestinian communities at the time, but the UN still decided to go and make the modern state of Israel a real thing.
Yeah, yeah, completely. I feel like culturally, when you look at Jewish culture, um, the Holocaust is kind of being used as this idea that the Jews align with the oppressed people of the world. The white European Jews align with the oppressed people of the world. When you look at them culturally, we have a huge Jewish population here in Brooklyn. They align with white people more than they align with us. And we know that very strongly. Like, they do not align with their culture, and like the mass majority of their culture and how it comes off does not align itself with the oppressed people of the world. They're aligned with the elites of the world. They're aligned with white supremacy. They're aligned with colonialism. The people living in Israel are from Poland, from Russia, from all over the place of the European hemisphere, and are calling themselves Jewish people. So it's like they've created this conceptualization that you can't speak the truth about what is really going on. Like, we know here in America, black and brown people, there are those of us that are in the elite realm, but black and brown people aren't by and large aligned with elitism. And of course, I'm not saying that there aren't poor Jewish people, but what I'm saying is that when you go to these protests and you do these Palestinian protests against the atrocities in Palestine, I hate to see people misunderstanding that the couple of Orthodox Jews you see represent Orthodox Jewishness across the world, because by and large, we have to understand that white supremacy includes Jewish people. It doesn't exclude Jewish people. There are many people who are victims of white supremacy that can be white supremacists. Like, clearly, Jewish people were victims of the white supremacy that went on in Germany, but Irish people are victims of white supremacy as well. And we saw characters like Conor McGregor make racist remarks at some of the Muslim-oriented people he was fighting in the ring in the UFC. White supremacy it infects the minds of what it lives next to. We see today we have black white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? There is no thing you can be that can keep you from being a white supremacist.
And I feel like another way that they get our people here in the States and wherever our people are internationally, I feel like they use the biblical Israel and they like compare it to the modern state of Israel. So people think that the biblical and the modern state is the same thing, and it's not. The modern state was just created in 1948. So before that, there was no Jewish state, and they created that for like imperialist reasons, for like to take the land of the Palestinians and to hold control over that region in the Middle East. That's why they did it. It wasn't for because the Jewish people were suffering. It was for imperialism. It was for like to dominate that region in the Middle East. That's what the whole Israel Palestine conflict is about now.
Because what does America do? America is a place that we know they want bases and have bases everywhere. So if they've been funding this project since its inception in 1948, Google when the Israeli flag has been created. Just Google it if you have any doubts. Google when was the Israeli flag created? When did the Israel state become legitimized? You know what I'm saying? These are their platforms telling you the truth. Even in Israel, they know the truth about themselves and tell themselves the truth. It's only here that you're confused. So, as Manny was saying, you see these military states that the United States has in Japan, in Vietnam, all across the entire world, in Africa, all across the entire world. In Ukraine, they wanted to create Ukraine as a U.S. military state, which is why Russia attacked them. So you see these military states all across the entire world, and then they're funding Israel. Why? Because they love Jews, or because they want another military state of dominance in the Middle East, which they have been dominating and messing up long before October 7th.
Mm-hmm. And what they're doing now, I feel like, is that they're manipulating people of the faith and people that are religious people and religious leaders to like almost, they want to say like, to be a Christian you have to support Israel. To be a Christian you have to be silent in the face of what's going on with the Palestinians. I feel like, especially with the black church today, like I feel like the black church hasn't spoken out against if we not forget Palestine, the black church hasn't spoken out about anything recently. So I feel like they and it shows like there's mega churches in every other block in Brooklyn, bro. And the silence on Palestine is loud. Like the silence on like murder of black people is loud. Like the same people not talking about the genocide in Palestine, like we can't expect them to talk about these other issues. But it shows like religion today, especially American religion, American Christianity, like it's become this like culture of silence in the face of like evil shit going on. And I feel like the black church used to be an institution that would be the most vocal about things going on. Look at the civil rights movement. Like it was the black church that spearheaded the civil rights movement. You know, Dr. King, all those preachers, they was the ones that was very vocal about white supremacy, white racism. Like, and now today, in the midst of gentrification, in the midst of homelessness, in the midst of black people being displaced, in the midst of Palestinians being genocided, it's like they have nothing to say. They have nothing to say. They could talk about sin and immorality and all this other, you know, biblical things. But when it comes to things right here on earth, not in the sky, right here on earth, like they don't have much to say. I feel like, but especially with the Zionism question is like, I haven't seen any preacher, mainstream preacher, period, like say anything about what's going on in Palestine, you know? And I feel like it speaks to how religion in America today is complicit in all these things going on. Like religion has become like a thing of like they want to cow people into become cowards. That to be a Christian, that means you don't say nothing. To be, you know what I'm saying, to be a person of the faith, to be a Jewish person, that means you don't say nothing in the midst of all these things going on.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Especially what you said about the black church. I mean, ultimately, the compromise of the black church has been happening since the beginning of our enslavement. The archetype of the black church was a part of our enslavement. not as we embraced it, but as it was put upon us, in the sense of it's not necessarily what you teach, is how you teach it. So a lot of people, they misconstrue, because people carrying Bibles and they're heading toward you. It's an amazing thing. But the people who carry the Bibles and head toward black people in this world have been terrible people. So I think that idea that just having a Bible makes you an amazing person is a wrong way to deal with things. It's not what you're taught, it's how you're taught it. It's like, as black people growing up in America, we're taught how to clean. And the anxiety that's being brought into how we're taught how to clean comes from times of enslavement. Cleaning is a good thing, but how you teach it becomes this anxious and depressing thing. This kind of like more violent thing, even when you don't want to clean or something like that. When, of course, these are just echoes of what we've been through during enslavement. When it comes to the Bible, so many people, when they hear these type of conversations, their concern is about what is taught, when ultimately, if your teaching is based on how you're teaching it. If you're teaching scripts from the Bible in the sense of, well, you could teach it just in this Santa Claus kind of gifts and cold kind of way of like, well, if you're a good slave, God is going to bless you. If you're a bad slave, the devil is going to get you. And a lot of times you have to understand, we're being taught these things by our captors, the racist, rapist, all of these terrible kinds of people are teaching you about your religion. So how you adopt that religion is going to be in a tyrannical, perverted kind of way, which is why you see the black religious people in America are people that have been dociled. And it's very clear that they've been dociled. And you see it in the silence. You see it in the over metaphorizing of everything going on. Well, the devil is what you have to worry about. No, the white man is what we have to worry about. And you're not giving us answers on how to deal with him. You're just metaphorizing life and trying to push all of our success and resource attainment to our death and after our death. And this is this kind of pagan, sacrificial, wizardry that keeps people outside of focusing on the reality of what we're dealing with right now, and keeps people focusing on, like, well, what type of sacrifice do I have to do to get into heaven? And black people in America, we don't need starry-eyed, dreamy kind of things. We need real approaches to real problems. How to get to heaven shouldn't keep us from finding heaven here on earth. Because the white man is concerned about how to dominate. And because he's concerned about how to dominate, he dominates. Why aren't we concerned about our freedom here in real life? And we're trying to get some freedom in the afterlife. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I feel like to your point about what we were taught during enslavement, like I feel like a lot of times the preachers and the pastors play two roles. Like they were either the person to lull the people to sleep and teach them, miseducate them, teach them like the slave master's form of that religion of Christianity, like, obey your master, and the slave that didn't obey their master would be punished. And then there was the version of the preacher, the Nat Turner, that said like, I'm going to teach my people something that's going to liberate them. I'm going to teach them something by the book that's going to help free my people. And we're not taught, the mainstream version of Christianity in America is not that version. It's not the Nat Turner version. It's not the Dr. King version.
Yeah.
Because Dr. King was a Christian, and to my Christian listeners, this is not to bash the Christian faith or black Christians. It's to say, like, we have a long history of being black Christians, of using the faith to help free ourselves, to talk about the truth of what's going on in the world. Like Jesus was a person that stood against the Roman establishment with the oppressed, with the poor people. He was breaking bread with the poor people.
Yeah.
He didn't run to the Romans saying, I want to be with the Romans. He said, I want to be with the people in the mud. So I feel like we have to remember those lessons. Like a lot of our ancestors that were Christians, they was using that book to help free us. They wasn't saying Moses. Harriet Tubman wasn't called Moses because she was called Moses because she was trying to help free her people. She was a leader with her people. So I feel like we have to remember those things, like as it relates to us as a people. There's nothing wrong with having your faith and having your system of belief, but I feel like, to your point, Esai, like we're being taught a version of religion that's very perverse. It's like we can't say nothing about what's going on in the world. It's almost as if like we have to wait for the pie in the sky and not talk about what's going on here on earth. And that's not what being a Christian or being a Jew or being a Muslim is about.
And a lot of what you're saying goes back to what I was talking about in terms of the how. How are you taught this thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're bringing it up in a very good way when you talk about like Moses and the archetype that Harriet followed. Like, when you read the Bible, are these people just like, is the Bible about people sitting in their bed and praying about things to change, or is it about them being empowered to change things themselves? So you see how you can be taught how to be a Christian, and it could be a complete perversion of the characters in the Bible that God led to be Christians. You see how you could be taught to just be docile and to wait for your governance of your own reality, your own sovereignty to be had only in heaven. And you see how Moses won his people's sovereignty by splitting the sea and crossing the river. And you imagine if Moses decided to just get on his knees and stay on his knees and pray and told his people to pray instead of splitting the river and leaving Egypt with his people. Well, they'd still be slaves in Egypt today. And this was in Africa. This is in Africa. Moses represented, the people of God of that time. You know what I'm saying? This is Old Testament. So these people would be Jewish, and I say that to say that a lot of Jewish people see Moses as kind of like their heritage. But what I'm saying is that this man is from Africa. This man was oppressed in Egypt. The slaves in Egypt, were they white Europeans? We have to ask ourselves these questions when it comes to origin, because they're using this label of origin to try to say, well, this is why we should be killing people and taking their land because it's not theirs in the first place.
Yeah, they are using that label of origin. I would say if you look at the world today, what people in the world, what country in the world today has their land and their country and their government off of religion, other than Israel? When you really think about it, no other country in the world holds land off of religion. They hold it off of ethnic background. Like, if you're an African, you in Africa. If you're Asian, you in Asia. If you're a European, you're in the European places. If you were Australia, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Of course, yeah.
whatever you are, it goes back to your lineage, your ethnicity. So it's like that's the only country in the world that they're using religion as the claim that they have to that land.
Yes.
That's how you know it's illegal and immoral.
Of course.
That's how you know there's something wrong with that picture. And to your point about the Jews of the Bible and the European Jews of today, Judaism as a faith system is actually originated in Africa. Like, the monotheism, the belief in one God, originated in Africa. Everywhere outside of Africa at that time in ancient times was believing in the sun, was believing in cows, was believing in things like that. So the belief in one God came from Africa. So Moses, all those people in the book, even in the Bible in the Old Testament, all those areas that they mentioned, Kush, that's in the southern part of Egypt. That's in the southern part of Africa. Like, these are places in the now called the Middle East, now called Africa. These are the places where all those men of the faith, Paul, Peter, all those places, this was all happening in Africa. So I don't understand how white European Jews claim that as like their heritage. I'm not saying that they can't claim the faith of Judaism as a faith. That's a faith system. But to claim that as their heritage is where things get confusing, I think, because Judaism as a faith actually originates in Africa. So I feel like that they're using that story, that Bible story of Moses and the Jews leaving through the Red Seas to say, like, we've always been persecuted. But it's like those people persecuted in the book were not Europeans. And the book says that. So I think that has to also be said.
Completely. And the crazy thing from what you're saying, Manny, is that you'll have a lot of Christians repeating these things that has been propagandized by the state of Israel. When I think a lot of Americans and a lot of Europeans and people who support this atrocity going on need to really think, like, how can you substantiate a claim of violence and bombardment and massacre based on something that's supposed to be this loving doctrine? How can you do that? If Hindus wanted to come lay siege on New York City and they did so saying that, oh, well, it's because of our God told us that this is our land, would you substantiate it? No, you wouldn't. So why are you substantiating other religions that aren't even your own religion? The reason you're doing it is because these people are white European. That is the start and the end of the reason. You're substantiating these people because they're white European, and anything that any pretense that deifies white Europeans, because these ones are different. They wear hats and they have curls on the sides of their head. Anything that deifies white Europeans, you're behind, because you support the colonial structure of the world today. Because if we have to start talking about Israel, then we have to start digging into, well, what is this land we're on called America? Is it a colonial project? What is the land they're on over there called Australia? Is it a colonial project? What are white people doing in South Africa? Is that a colonial project? You don't want to have the bigger conversation, so essentially you don't want to even start with the smaller conversation. So when it comes to what's going on, we have to ask ourselves, like, if the Jewish people were a black people who had taken the Palestinian land, Asian people who had taken the Palestinian land, and these Asian people wore hats and curls on the side of their head, will you substantiate it? Of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. Because only when white people do something atrocious can you plagiarize it to be something good.
And even today with the Israel Palestine thing, they use a lot of soft words with it, like even with the state of Israel, like they use word, like they bring up the October 7th thing. They bring up, and they'll say Israel Palestine conflict as if it's this 50-50 thing, and it's two groups of people going at it with each other, and that's not the case. It's an occupation, it's a genocide. They occupied that land. These people did not consent to the occupation in 1948 when Israel was established, so it wasn't a consensual thing. So I feel like they use a lot of words like it's a 50-50 Israel Palestine conflict. Let's do a ceasefire. Like even the word ceasefire, it's like they're literally bombing Gaza. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a battle of two equal forces. It's a battle of a dominator and dominating the people who did nothing to them. If you want the land, you can go to Germany or go somewhere in Europe and partition that land, since that's where the European Jews were historically oppressed. Why go all the way to the Middle East where these people have done nothing to the European Jews? So I feel like, to your point, Eastside, like these people are using religion. It's religion wrapped in with white supremacy, wrapped in with imperialism, wrapped in with like this concept that white people feel like they can go wherever they want under the guise of religion and do whatever they want to non-white people, and they feel like it's justified, and they feel like anybody that resisted, they come up with these terms: anti-Semitic, you're a hater, you're a hateful person. It's like, but we know the facts. Like the facts are, y'all are using the media and propaganda to make people quiet and to make people not challenge what's going on in Palestine and what's going on in the world today.
Exactly. I mean, the thing that makes this unique, and it doesn't take a lot of thought to understand this. It doesn't take a lot of honesty to understand this. If you aren't understand this, is because you're going into this with already a preconceived notion that what everything Israel does is correct. So if you're going with a fresh and unbiased notion, what you'll understand is that if somebody Jewish was to come and attack me today, it wouldn't give me the right to attack 10 Jewish people tomorrow. So whatever Hamas did on October 7th doesn't give Israel the right to kill Palestinians indiscriminately. When you see videos of Palestinians, are these people armed or unarmed? Or are these people defenseless, or do they have adequate defenses? When you see the cities in Palestine, why are all of them bombed? Why are all the spaces in that city bombed, and the Palestinian people are living in tents? If you want a real honest dissection, listen to the doctors of every race that have gone to provide humanitarian aid to Palestine and in Gaza. Listen to those doctors, white Jewish doctors. Doctors from America, doctors from Europe, doctors from all across the world are going to Palestine to provide aid. Listen to their firsthand notice. What they'll tell you is that those Palestinian people are being massacred indiscriminately, killed for being Palestinian in Palestine.
Even with the Palestinians, that with groups like Hamas that are deciding to resist to the Israeli occupation, oppressed people always have the right to resist their oppressors. I'm not going to I feel like this narrative that anytime a Palestinian or a Palestinian group defends themselves from aggression, from genocide, from the killing of men, women, and children, I don't think that that's a irrational thing, or that's like, let's paint them as animals because they want to defend themselves. I feel like that's something that the American media and the Israeli media has done successfully. Like, anytime Hamas or anytime any Palestinian wants to defend themselves, now they're the animals, even though it was the people that occupied the land in 1948 that should be looked as the aggressors. Like, the Palestinians are not the aggressors in this situation. They're the people that are looking for life in a situation where it's been made a living hell. So I feel like that needs to be put into context. And oppressed people resisting an aggressor and resisting an evil is not an evil thing. I think that needs to be said for the folks listening out there.
I agree. And lastly, what I'll say is that if you're the mark of intelligence for any human being is for me is the ability to think of yourself in someone else's shoes. So and if you're capable of that or not usually spells out how intelligent you actually are. So I advise for anybody listening right now, like, if you were in the shoes of a Palestinian and every day you're seeing people indiscriminately get killed, unarmed, defenseless people indiscriminately get killed, what would you want right now? Would it be a sign that said, please don't kill me, or would it be a gun? You know what I'm saying? And that says a lot in regards to the rights of resistance. Would you want the right to resist, this indiscriminate killing of your people, or would you just want to be able to have a megaphone to cry for peace?
The irony of all of this is that they're using the historical oppression of the European Jews to now justify the state of Israel and justify genocide of a people in the Middle East, the Arab Palestinians. So, one, in the Holocaust in Europe, it was an extermination of a people, and now they're using that extermination of a people to exterminate another people. So I think it just needs, I think for the folks that are listening, like, people need to, like, look at this intelligently and just look at it for what it is. Like, it's the media and this propaganda being used to misdirect people to paint victims as the aggressors and aggressors as the victims.